What's up? Welcome to Jack Theology. It's
Yeah,
good to
here we go
be
again.
good to be here. Like the shirt, very festive of you.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we're headed up towards Halloween. I think this is the last episode we'll have before Halloween, if I'm right.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about some
Did I?
Halloween stuff.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure if I looked at the calendar correctly or not,
I
but it is
I think you're
coming
right.
close.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah, it is.
next week. Yeah.
So
So,
this is our Halloween episode, I guess.
yeah, we should talk about some of that, I guess, again. I feel like one of our first episodes was about
Yeah, we did. We talked
um,
about it in the beginning. It's funny, like Christianity, the themes like
oh,
repeat themselves, right? I mean, you think you've driven something into the ground and talked about it enough, and then it rises again from the dead. There's a lot of resurrecting that goes on, I guess, in Christianity. But it's just bad conversations and theology that keeps getting resurrected.
yeah, yeah. Um Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. This one though, I feel like is so volatile because of the evil goblins and there's this good versus evil. I think a lot of it. The more I think about it, a lot of it has to do with I think theologically the view of hell because now that I've expanded beyond evangelical Protestantism uh, and been a part of different types of Christian tribes, and the one I'm currently part of, well, actually, two others that I'm a part of. It's not important. It's not even an issue. This Halloween thing, it doesn't even come up. It doesn't even register on the radar, and they have different views of hell. So I feel like there's something to how we view hell and how we view Halloween.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of integration there, right, between a more fundamentalist or old school perception of hell, a more Middle Ages, I guess, perception of hell and Halloween. Yeah,
Yeah,
there is a tie there.
yeah, and two, it should be said that I know my Latino brothers and sisters out there. There's definitely a very much of a fear, and I haven't completely explored that, and definitely didn't experience it. Obviously, I'm a white guy, so I didn't experience Latino culture growing up. But I know there's also something to being anti-Halloween based on some Latin America cultures and how they celebrated that holiday. But we're European, and most of the people that we interact with also have our European backgrounds, and so we kind of tag into this idea of um, Halloween being kind of an evil holiday because of the kind of the Celtic um, evil gods, the pagan gods, and kind of a worship of I forget the guy's name. I didn't look it up before we got on, but worship of basically the devil's holiday.
Yeah,
So, but we see throughout traditions, even Latino traditions, this time of year, the end of fall, heading into kind of the winter, the first frost, things are dying, right? Things around us, death is around us. I'm looking out the window. Although today's a beautiful 85-degree day here in New Jersey, but leaves are changing, leaves are dying, and that our gardens, all of us who had gardens, the first frost kills the plants, and so then we experience death all around us, and so they had these parties and these festivals to celebrate the passing of the season, and kind of the death of nature all around us, and different cultures celebrated it differently, and so I think there's nothing wrong with celebrating that passing of the season, and so Christians um, celebrated it by honoring the saints that had died and gone before. Next week, and maybe we'll talk about this in next week's episode a little bit, is All Saints Day, um, where we celebrate the saints. And so Halloween comes from an iteration of All Hallows Eve, All Saints Eve, All Saints Day Eve. All Hallows is another way of saying All Saints. And so they would celebrate the European Christian culture would celebrate Halloween the night before All Saints Day by dressing up as ghosts and goblins to scare away the evil spirits. And then also they would dress up. There's some cultures that would dress up as their favorite saint, and go uh, trick or treating. And we kind of today have our kind of a merging of a lot of these things, these ideas here in America.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I think so much of what you're talking about is contextualization. That these holidays are being contextualized, and Christianity is being contextualized into the culture in which it's placed. And there, has a strong bent within certain segments of Christianity to distance, to segregate, to separate what is Christian from the culture around it. First of all, it's really impossible. It just is not able to be that way. We live and breathe inside of culture. We want, our breath really perhaps to come from the kingdom of God while we live inside of the kingdom of man. But there's no way to really separate those two things out. And Christianity is contextualized wherever it's placed, and so it looks different there. I think what happens is oftentimes we have the danger of kind of contextualizing Christianity around the culture rather than contextualizing our participation in culture around Christianity. So, we decide here in US America that the way we think theologically about Halloween and the way we practice Halloween is right. And so we would just superimpose that over Latin American culture or superimpose that over African culture or other places where contextually there are a lot of other nuances in there that might, as you say, prevent Christians from being able to celebrate Halloween in the same way here in US America that they might in Latin America. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that we shouldn't necessarily bless US American theology, US American Christianity, US American cultural practices as being the only way, the right way, or the best way of doing things. And when it comes to Halloween, that may be actually a great way for us to enter in and have that conversation about contextualization and being local and being involved in the cultures in which we're in. Christianity did that in the very beginning, right? At the first few hundred years of the culture, the reason why Christianity grew was because it contextualized itself into the culture of the Roman Empire and eventually was like a virus, like a cancer. It took it over. For better or for worse, that was how Christianity survived. And that's how Christianity survives and thrives in other cultures as well. It's a bit of a, pardon the phrase, virus. Finds a host, takes over the host. I don't know. But maybe that's not the
that's a good,
best, but I mean, at the end of the day,
good metaphor.
that's really kind of what happens, right? Is that transformation? That hopefully Christianity is transforming culture, not into U.S. American idea of Christian culture, but more into something that looks more Christ-like, something that looks more like the heartbeat of God. That's the transformation I think that's supposed to happen. Unfortunately, what happens is Christianity embeds itself in cultures and then ends up, rather than it being a symbiotic relationship, a good relationship between, the host and symbiote, it becomes a toxic cancer that destroys everything around it. And I think that's what we see oftentimes in U.S. America is Christianity has become so toxic in some places that it's a cancer that's eating away, not just itself, not just Christ, but eating away at the culture in which it's been placed.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is one of those holidays too. Like the point you made, like, I love that Christianity kind of infected the culture and changed the culture. And so we see with these different holidays, it's hard to tell on some of them where Christianity started their celebration of the holiday and where the pagans, and which was first, which was second.
I love
There's a lot of
arguments about
debate.
that online.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
It all came from
And
Christianity. None of it came from Christianity. Well, nobody really
yeah,
knows.
yeah,
It's kind of
yeah,
both.
yeah, yeah. And so what is clear, though, to your point, is that Christians would not ignore the cultural celebrations around them. They would enter into them and put their own meaning on it. I mean, that's clear. Whether whatever you believe about what started when and who was first, but that's what they would
That's a
do.
really great point.
Yeah. And so I think we can celebrate the holiday. I think we should
Yeah,
and enter into
take
it.
the symbols and the celebrations and turn them into their own. You know, the Christmas tree, the light, all of these things. You know, these metaphors, these symbols. Many of them, you know, started for other reasons, and they were the Christians kind of said, "Hey, why don't you think about it in this way? You know, hey, you light lights this time of year in celebration. Have you ever thought about John 1? You know, the light of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's brilliant. But Christianity sometimes I think has kind of lost the art of metaphor, lost the art of symbolism, lost the art, you know, of its own story, and being able to tell that story in a compelling way in culture. Instead, it's just like taking the Bible and beating it over your head. God says this, or else you're going to hell. Well, that's not how Christianity grew, and it's certainly not how Christianity has lived, moved, and breathed for most of its history. Or else it wouldn't be living, moving, or breathing anymore.
Yeah. Well, and two, like Halloween is one of those holidays that, for the most part these days, it's become really a neutral holiday, in my opinion. Like, to be frank, I mean, the church isn't really celebrating our saints anymore. We've kind of lost that. But at
Which
the
is
same
sad.
time, I don't see a lot of evil. There's not like the mischief night is like kids having fun and toilet papering each other's houses, and every year our house gets toilet papered on mischief night by somebody because we're the pastor. But it's just
Probably the local police, probably.
yeah, yeah, I know. Well, yeah.
Sorry, too far.
Some people probably want to throw rocks through our
Past
house,
church
but yeah.
members, other denominations in the community, folks who know Matt smokes on the porch. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
every year it's somebody different toilet papering the pastor's house, right?
they're coming after me. But it's
You
just
should get
become kind of a
you
fun
should make
thing,
sign
right?
up sheets. Just put a sign up sheet out by the road.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Former parishioners are from 9 to 10. Police and officials in town are from 10 to 11.
Yeah, you could like charge. I don't know, do a raffle.
That's a good idea. We were talking about fundraisers at our last board meeting. That's a good fundraiser. Uh, Pay to vandalize the pastor's house. Um, the but it's a lot of fun, right? Like 90% of what I see on Halloween is families out with their kids dressed as princesses or Spider Man and Wolverine or whatever. And it's just a fun holiday to mark the end of one season and the beginning of another. And I think it's become very neutral. And so I think some of these wars between whether or not Halloween is acceptable or not, I think is really just people yelling into a vacuum, like to be heard about something. And I think it's
Yeah, it's not helpful. It's
yeah,
not productive. It doesn't move the ball forward in Christianity or in the culture in which we're placed. It's counterproductive. And I think I was thinking as you were talking just about evangelism and the way so many churches have historically evangelized around this time of year, with hell houses and harvest festivals and all these things to try to divert people away from evil Halloween into something that will save souls or add numbers to the church. And I just think that so many of those things are um I'm glad maybe that they're doing something, that they're acknowledging that this season exists, but I so wish that we saw evangelism more as blessing the culture around us rather than being antagonistic in the culture in which we've been placed. Finding ways in which to bless and bring out the best in people, to give above, to be generous in ways that are completely and utterly shocking and surprising to the community, that a Christian would be a part of that a Christian would do that. And then people begin to ask questions. It draws people to, I think, faith rather than create shame or guilt or fear in people, which is a powerful motivator, but not forever, not for long. At some point, people wake up.
yeah. And what other holiday do you have all your neighbors come into your door with an opportunity to be
Right,
generous? You
right.
know, it's like, so yeah, be generous. Don't give out tracts. I say this every year. I'll say it again.
If yeah, if I could wave a magic wand and delete something from the planet, other than that one person on Twitter, maybe two, it would be.
Dude,
It, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It would be tracks.
tracks do not work. Every year there's a thread on Facebook I see of people making fun of tracks and angry that their child got a track. And so actually you're having the opposite effect that you think you're having. You're making it harder on yourself, on the rest of us who follow Jesus. So
But sometimes
please
I
do not
wonder
give
if
out that.
that's what they want. Like I have started wondering and even
Maybe.
coming to the conclusion that people truly want to be an ass. Like that there's some sort of jewel in the crown of Christ that will be given to you for completely and utterly alienating every single person whom is in your mind going to be in hell. So it's like a competition, I think, sometimes for some people in order to offend and be offensive as much as possible. I don't think for some people it's really about bringing people to Christ. I think it's about putting a notch in the belt.
Yeah, who can be the biggest ass Christian? We see that on Twitter all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me. Uh, they need to hear. Well, what's hilarious is when people say, "Yeah, you're right. That is, it is pushing people away," but they need to hear the unloving gospel. Is what basically they say.
Well, yeah,
That's
think
the way.
yeah. I think there's this idea that if Joe gets to heaven and Joe hasn't been told that he is a evil sinner, then Jesus can't send them to hell. Like, I think there is this mindset theologically in people where they have to tell people that they're headed to hell for fear that they might get to heaven and there might be like some clause in there that says, oh, wait, he didn't know. Nobody told him. So he's going to get on into heaven. And then I'm going to have to be next to, Joe, the unrepentant sinner, who's gay, whereas I had sex with 40 women, other than my wife over the years, but he's the one, who shouldn't be here. I just, I don't, it's madness.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know how we got there, but it's the only way I can make sense of those people, of
Yeah,
those extreme fundamentalists.
there's a lot of them though.
Because there's a joy in condemning people, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like where should there be any joy in telling someone that they may be far from God and should consider a change of mind or heart? Where do you find joy in that? Are you go to a therapist? Like who abused you as a child? Like you need to EMDR that out of you. There's something grossly wrong with you. This is not normal.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The hate.
we have whole denominations built around mental illness, fundamentalism. You know, the joy in telling people that they're evil.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's just it. But they also get I think an adrenaline rush off of it too. It's like a hit, of
Interesting.
adrenaline of
Yeah.
telling people they're going to hell and they don't care if it's not if it's not working by doing that. But I said it, I did it.
Yeah, that's true.
I trolled
It's true. It's a dopamine
humanity.
response. Yeah, there's dopamine.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got down that rabbit trail. Sorry, but
No, well, it's good because it's like
clearly
I
this
know
lack
there's
of
people
food,
that
my brain is just woo.
well, I mean, I get these conversations all the time with church people because how do you get more people to come to church and how do we grow the church? Well, Halloween's coming, so we should, give out all these church items, and people want to come, and it simply doesn't work. It just doesn't. So, yeah, don't do it. Just be generous. If you want to promote your church, promote it by how generous you are and what kind of candy you give out, and leave it at that. You know, people will know you by your actions and your attitude, and trust me, people know you go to church. If they're your neighbors, they're
Yeah.
around you enough. They see your lifestyle and what you do with your life, and
Put a sign
They
in your
stalk.
yard like advertising candlelight Christmas Eve or something, and then give
Yeah,
out two of those huge big ass candy bars, those XL size, to every
yeah,
single person that comes. Like just completely and utterly become the the house, that's generous, and don't ever say anything about your faith. Um,
yeah.
you shouldn't have to, right?
No, it's yeah. It should be the value in which you live.
Hey, why are you giving out so many big, huge candy bars? Isn't that expensive? Hey, I love Jesus, and Jesus said, be generous. Like,
Yeah,
what more do you
the
have to
whole
say? Like, really? Wait until
yeah
they
the, whole-
ask.
the whole yeah that whole verse. Be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have. So, what does that mean? Live your life in such a way that people ask why you're living that way. Right? Profound. That's the evangelism of Jesus right there. Um, Not screaming that they're going to hell. The people that do that, like, where do they get that from? Because that never happens in the Bible. Like, like is not there. It really isn't. So I don't know. I don't get
Yeah.
there.
Um,
And those are the people that are like, I'm just being biblical. I'm a biblical preacher. Well, not really. Um, my brother sent me something. This is total rabbit trail, but he sent me something last night that I thought was hilarious. And it's kind of a Jack theology thing. His pastor, I guess, is pretty conservative, and he invited this guest speaker to speak. And my brother wanted to know what I thought of him, and so I clicked on the Google link that he sent me, like with his bio, and then I clicked on his first. This guy has a couple books on Amazon, so I clicked on the first book,
ooh.
and it was like why the King James version is like the only version to read. And I was like, oh, I forgot these people existed, the King James only people.
Yeah, that's like next level
Uh,
fundamental. I mean, I grew up, in that,
yeah,
but you don't
yeah,
hear. I guess maybe I'm so insulated or isolated. You don't hear much from that side of fundamentalism Christianity anymore. Evangelicalism being so large has become like the new 800-pound gorilla, I think, in
yeah.
toxic fundamentalism. And so, the old school, real, hardline fundamentalists have just been kind of overshadowed, I think, by
Yeah,
all of
these
this new stuff. Like they still
yeah, these
exist? What the hell?
I
That's
know. I
crazy.
was like, "Whoa, yeah." Like this is the only inspired word of God. King James back in 16 whatever. That's when God inspired the truth, which is fascinating. Um so yeah, the Halloween, celebrate it, enjoy it, enter into it. And if you don't get online and post hate for people that do. Just, I think that's one of those, just kind of leave it alone and get on with your holiday season as we head towards Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that.
Yeah. But, so much of
So
what's broken in Christianity, I think, is this idea, this mindset that I want my opinion to come out of your mouth. Like, I think that so much within, especially conservative evangelicalism, is so much like everybody needs to agree with me, on whatever it is that I choose to care about on that day. So I want to hear my opinion come out of your mouth. And it's like, come on. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Understand.
fascinating too. Like with, I just was thinking about politics with that. The the presidential elections, you hear that a lot. Like what you just said is everybody wants their opinion to come out of your mouth, especially as a leader. And I'm noticing the more I interact about this election online, the more I hear from evangelicals, especially that they agree with me that Trump is evil, and they'll even say I have to go through the list of people. I think 1 out of 10 people that I've really had these heart to heart, intense conversations with, um, is actually admitted to me they're voting for Trump.
Really?
The rest of them is like they say to me that they agree with me about Trump, so they're not going to vote for him. They're going to vote third party, but yet they continue to argue with me that their opinions about Trump are correct in support of him, right? And I keep saying, well, if you don't support him, then why are you bringing this up? Like, why is this like? It's almost like they want me to. They're trying to meet me halfway. Oh, you're right. You're right. He's a bad person. Yeah, I'm not going to vote for him either. But and they want me to agree with their opinion on him that he's mostly right. That he's mostly good. And it's fascinating to me to think about. And then I think too, obviously Trump's a guy most Christians don't want to publicly admit that they support. It's more of that private behind the scenes kind of thing, um, which is it's fascinating to me, um, to see that happen. But yeah, I think people crave their opinion to be agreed with by everybody. And I think too, like even with politics, even with the Halloween thing, like it's okay to disagree about stuff. Like to me, like I'm kind of the place where I'm just like, you know what, we need to openly argue and dialogue more and just agree to disagree and stop feeling like, if someone disagrees with me, they're being evil, or if or we have to agree, or we can't have unity. I want to see more of that. I want to see more dialogue and debate, healthy. Like obviously, I hate it when I see people getting personal and personal attacks. There's really no place for that, especially in Christendom. But when you can have a healthy conversation, healthy debate, I think that's when we can see breakthrough. We can see, you know, less division, especially when it comes to the area of politics in our country. And what's fascinating to me is most people just want to silence everybody. And when you silence everybody, we all just go to our corners and our echo chambers, right? And become, I think, even more divisive and less, less unifying. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think we tend to want to silence people who don't agree with us. In the court of public opinion, I hear a lot of folks. What I guess we call it cancel culture. Conservatism, talks a lot about cancel culture, but conservatism is kind of the original cancel culture. Cancel Disney, cancel McDonald's. The number of things that they've canceled over the years and boycotted, for one reason or
They won't
another.
cancel McDonald's now.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, our Lord and Savior, he works at McDonald's, so we are gonna eat at McDonald's. Yeah, so I'm surprised he didn't pick Chick-fil-A. To be honest with you, that would have
um,
been.
yeah. Yeah, I'll be glad when the election is over. Will it ever be over? I think is the question, but I guess I'll be glad when that milestone, vote comes through and we can at least move on to whatever's next.
Agreed. I'm over it. I'm so tired of the. And I approve this message. I
I know
approve this message.
it's such a stupid, ridiculous FCC or whoever it is FTC rule. But, it's fascinating though. Conservatives, I've noticed in the last 2 days are really doing a full court press for Trump. You talking about Trump and the need to bless not just, necessarily the platform, but also Trump himself as having integrity or character, being a Christian, is really kind of fascinating, to me. And watching that play out from people online is it's like living in another world to hear Christians so hold others to standards of righteousness, that they refuse to hold Trump to, when Trump is far and away worse than any other person usually that they talk about. The stuff that people will say to others, online and in person about, how you're living your life, you're unrepentant, you sinner, the things you say, pronouns in your bio. Like, it's just fascinating how little patience or concern Christians have for the normal person out there. But with Trump, it's like no matter what he does, it's blessed by God. It's God's person. The irony is jolting.
Yeah, yeah, especially this week because of the whole Jesus is Lord thing that they said was said at her. I mean, you can't really tell, to be honest with you, what was said, but they think Kamala heard it clearly that somebody screamed Jesus is Lord, and she told them they need to get out. And
I mean,
so
I haven't heard it. I'm not going to defend Kamala. I have no
the
idea. It is very hard for me to believe that any seasoned person would hear that statement clearly and would have that response in a political, even if you believed it or thought it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, she was being heckled. I mean, I watched some of the clip, and she was being heckled. It wasn't like there was one phrase that was used. So like maybe they did say that in multiple phrases.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I mean,
you know,
what are
and so
Christians doing out here heckling people? I mean,
yeah,
come the f on. I mean, if it were me, I would have said worse than she said to them.
yeah, yeah,
If she clearly heard them and responded in that way as a heckler, I would have. She was gracious, to
yeah.
them. Like,
But even if,
what are you doing? Like, what are you
e-
doing?
yeah, let's say even if she's a not like an atheist, whatever she might very well be, and these Christians are right. Like in no way could you tell me that Donald Trump is the better candidate for a Christian to vote for based on how he actually lived his life, like right in front of us, and the stuff he says to people, how he demeans people. Like the fact that's what's really annoyed me is like you're just going to ignore all of this for this one little moment that is arguably not even true, but you're just jumping on it, and that's where I get a real bad taste in my mouth from these folks. Um, and honestly, they should be ashamed of themselves, to be honest with you, that they're doing it like this. Like, in no way is Trump. We're just admit Trump is an awful human, an awful representative of our faith. But I am so, taken. My loyalty is the Republican Party over anything else in my life. If you
Yeah,
would just admit that, then all right, fine. I don't
yeah.
agree with it, but I'll respect that.
Here's the problem: is
Um,
the problem isn't that they're loyal to the Republican Party. The problem is that they are loyal to Trump. The Republican Party, the GOP, had a extremely huge number of candidates in the beginning, choices that were very different than Trump, and many of them had a much better record when it comes to character and integrity and actual faith. Evangelicals broke for Trump in the primaries in the same numbers that they break for Trump in every single election, which means they want Trump. It's
good
not
point. Good point.
it's not a situation where it's like, well, he's the only candidate. It's either, Trump or Satan. No, you want Trump. And that's problematic
Yeah.
from a spiritual standpoint, from a theological standpoint, from a Christian standpoint. It's problematic.
Well, yeah, very. I mean, a lot of these guys. I told someone that they needed to go read about Christian nationalism a little bit more, because a lot of these guys do want democracy to end. Like, it's interesting to me. A lot of folks are like, "Oh, if you don't vote for Trump, then you're not American." But in reality, a lot of these people that want to vote for Trump are voting for him because they don't want historically what has been America anymore.
Yeah.
They want this dictator who's to give them their
They don't want
Christian.
a melting pot. We don't want to welcome
No,
people anymore. We want to close. I was about to say close our borders, but really it's about closing our hearts. It's about
yeah,
closing our minds. It's about closing our homes to other people.
yeah, that and
I think what you said is one of the clearest and maybe most like crazy true things that I've heard. What that they don't want the America that exists. How did you say that? Like, that was just brilliant.
they don't want the America that has been for all these years. They want a new way of living, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to make America great again. They want to make a new America that's never existed before. And so, yeah, it's sad, it's scary. Well, they don't want women to have any rights. It's all about the man. It's all about the white man.
Yeah, I
So,
was going to say
yeah,
it's just a start. It's a whittling away of people who disagree with them, and slowly but surely it will become. Um, I hate to. It'll become a Christian Sharia law situation, where we deal with similar things or worse, frankly, than than the Muslim community deals with in some areas. That's where we're headed.
Yeah. And podcasts like this will be,
We'll be the first people on the chopping block.
they'll use this as evidence against us. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, Trump's come out and said that he's going to go after anybody who defies him. He's going to get revenge. So watch out if you come against Trump. I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy that in America, like we just that's fine. That's fine. We're still gonna vote for him. Wow. Um. So yeah, Trump. So that kind of segues it nicely into the little graphic I sent you, that David Bentley Hart. Um, he cracks me up. I don't know if you ever read him much.
Yeah, he's great.
Uh,
Yeah, in
he
fact, I put it up on
he
the screen here.
okay. So he says, "I'm not sure Christianity will ever reach these shores, but if it does, it's going to be very intractable. Be It's going to find a very intractable people here, very hard to convert." Um, and he's referring to America. He's referring to his own country, and that might shock some people to think, "Oh, he doesn't think Christianity's here." And it's like, well, if you look at where our Christians are putting their political support right now, yeah, it's not very Christian at all. It's not very Christian at all. And I think we're finding, I know you and I, we interact with a lot of this online, is people are resistant to Jesus. Let's just put it bluntly. Like, people don't want to talk about Jesus. People don't want to look at the way Jesus lived, the call that Jesus had for his people, what his kingdom was built on, this idea of love. God is love. Jesus was love. He's called us to love. And there's anything but love, right? Where they redefine love as just being hateful. If you're not hateful to your neighbor, then you're not loving them. It's like, I cringe a lot when I read this stuff.
I know, right?
You know,
Well, if you
and
don't
I
tell
have,
your kid not to run into the street, if you don't tell them the truth, you don't love
yeah,
them. You know how many times I've told my kid not to run into the street with 4 kids over the space of 20 years? Like, maybe once, maybe.
yeah, yeah,
You're out there doing
yeah,
it to 15 people every day, every week, whatever.
yeah. Well, let's even use that. So, like, we tell our kid not to go in the street. If they do, they might die. But what they're saying is, if they keep to doing this, then you're gonna be tortured for all of eternity. Like, what's worth? What's worse, a death you can't even feel because the cars, hit you at 50 miles an hour, or being tortured for eternity? Like, we wouldn't even say that to our kids,
Well,
but yet
Christians don't
we,
think, right? I mean, we don't think.
yeah,
But
but we think,
we've been taught not to think, right?
yeah,
That's how we've been trained, is to not think.
yeah. So we think
Swallow the theology. Yeah.
a loving God knows how to love less than us as humans. To me, that just boggles my mind. Um, that we would logically deduce that we would never punish our kids for eternity. We'll torture them for all of eternity. Never. And yet we think God would do that to his kids. It just blows my mind. Um, so yeah, Christianity, I love that because it's like, so it a lot of thoughts. So I was at my UCC conference on Saturday, and a question came up with kind of the guy who was leading our discussion about, like, church growth. Like, how do you grow a church in this 2025 era? And he kind of rolled his eyes. He's like, I don't think that's what we should really be talking about. But what he said was, which I found fascinating, he's like, the churches that I see that have movement where people churches are growing. He said, are churches that know who Jesus is, know that value, and they live it out. So there's no hypocrisy. So people are attracted to that, right? And then he took it a step further. And most of those churches that I've seen are actually welcoming and affirming to the LGBTQI community,
Hmm.
because you're actually showing the world that you actually take seriously the love of Christ, and you're loving this group of people, and they can practically see it in front of their face. And so he's like, the churches that I see most that are growing are those churches. And I was like, that hit me, because I was like, it's so true, because most of the world, like, and I know there might be some evangelical people that are listening to this, but most evangelical churches grow through transfer growth. Let's be honest. It's just, you're a better service, you do it better than the church down the street.
Yeah.
Not a lot of real people from the community are coming. Now some, it's not a blanket statement, but not a lot.
It's pretty close though. I mean, it really is
Yeah.
statistically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Conversion is very low and non-existent almost.
Yeah. And what's the number one reason that like people don't go to church is like hypocrisy. I mean, that you read all the studies, and you could kind of center most of the reasons on that. And so to me that made total sense when he said it. I was like, yeah, because practically they can see and they intuit that the church should be loving to this group of people, and yet they're not. So when they see a church that does it, it's refreshing. It's like, wow, they believe and they live the stuff they say. Like, it's a real tangible thing they can see. So I think that's why. I mean, I don't think there's other things like that, but that's like a big one in our culture right now. So I think um, like that's a type of Christianity that that Jesus would have been about, that a lot of churches are resistant to. In fact, I have two friends. Well, they're not friends anymore. Two people that have like completely pushed me out of their life as friends because of my stance on that issue, which is fascinating. Um, because I have supported the LGBTQI community, been an ally, publicly stated stuff on this podcast. You know, some of the stuff we stated on this podcast has got me in trouble with these two people, and they've completely pushed me out of their life because of that. Which all the other things in theology and church that we disagree on, but that one ended the relationship, which is fascinating to me.
They've been told there's no choice but to end the relationship with you over this. They've been told it's that big of a deal, and they believed it.
Yeah,
They've been fed a
and
lifetime of lies about love and about theology and about who that community is.
yeah, no, I think you're right on. I think um, that's a big one that we see, but then that definitely has a trickle down. Speaking of trickle down, economics here, that has a trickle down to other things. Like if you see love that way, where else do you see that? And as I reflect on it, like really, we only love in those environments. We only love people that believe our narrow view of biblical Christianity. And so if you don't come into our narrow view of biblical Christianity, then God's grace isn't for you. Like I remember preaching that, and so we wonder, like where do we get off thinking that the evangelical, especially the more modern fundamentalist evangelical that we're talking about? I mean, it really started not that long ago. And so where do we get off that this is like, now we figured it out? 2,000 years of faith. Now we figured it out. This narrow little view of Christianity.
Well, we were told
Um,
something else. We were told that the church always believed this way.
that's true. That's a good point.
I mean, most people who believe that this is historic Christianity, that the church has always had these stances and has always believed this thing, and they don't know their own story. Because you're right, it's a very small pie of a very short period of time. Um, but you've got that one church father who said some words that you can misconstrue to mean whatever it is you want them to mean, and off we go.
Yeah. Um, so I think Bentley Hart is so right that like, and I think it's because we've narrowed what it means to be a Christian so much that we've lost the ability to see the true gospel, the true kingdom of God. And I think lots of different tribes and ways of looking at scripture are included. I think that was kind of the point. Like Jesus didn't say, like he spoke in so many parables, like it's almost like he was giving permission to take different views on this kingdom, but his core was this idea of love and built on that love of God, love of others, right? But then like when theological issues would come up, Jesus would tell a story, and any story could be interpreted multiple different ways. There's so many different ways of looking at story. So I think, to me, I mean, there's a book I have here, like the Mosaic of the Atonement, talking about all the different views of the atonement. I think that is the beauty of the kingdom of God, is that there's this mosaic of different faith traditions that I think should be included um, in the kingdom of God and valued. And so when we narrow it down that it has to be this or else you're not a gospel believing church, I think that's the false, to me, that's the false gospel. Uh, so, so yeah,
I love that.
well, a little angry. I used to like be in these meetings where we would write down every church in the area that we thought was gospel believing.
Oh my gosh. I'm just at a point where I'm tired of folks who try to limit love. I'm tired of folks who try to limit God. I'm tired of theologies and ideologies that try to limit the kingdom of God and its expanse. That try to make it small rather than expansive and large. Something that tries to make it small tent rather than big tent.
Yeah. No, you're good about that. You're very good about pushing that online. I love that, and I love some
Just
of your posts.
poking the cage bears.
Yeah, I love some of them. I know that like you definitely thought through how to gain some engagement. I was like, and I just laugh. I'm like, they're so good though. You do a good job with that. But that's to me, that's the whole thrust of what you're doing online, is trying to expand people's view of what love could be and who could be loved and valued. And I do appreciate that about your voice online. It's definitely clear to me. I don't know about all the trolls, but
It's scary, right? I mean, it's scary to think that other people who I disagree with or might not like or fear might be in or have the same access to God that I do.
yeah,
I struggle with that too, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I struggle with the idea that King James Version pastor, is, who's out there writing those books and saying those things, maybe as loved by God and have the same access, to Jesus
yeah.
that I like. It's tough, right? We all have those issues and hang ups so over something.
Well, especially the people like that are telling you that they hope you get murdered. You know, by the immigrants, because you let in the you want to let in the Haitian immigrants, so they hope you get murdered by one.
Yeah, I wanted to respond.
No.
I hope they eat your cat, but I
Oh my gosh, that and all of those people are anonymous, and part of me is like, what I want to respond to some of them. Maybe I'll start doing it. Is like, what church do you pastor?
yeah, it's
Like,
I
I feel
many
like,
of them have to be pastors. So
yeah,
the most courageous people are the most anonymous. It's
yeah.
amazing. It's amazing how that
Funny how
works,
that
right?
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm sure their church would be thrilled to see that they're posting that. Um, yeah, so it's expansive love. I think
I mean, someday that'll
we've.
come out, right? I mean, what like the Ashley Madison thing, like Mark
Oh
Driscoll
yeah,
being
yeah,
out. Like I just kind of think at some point, like the user list for Twitter is going to be hacked, and all of the email addresses that are tied, to those accounts is going to be published somewhere. It's like it someday. So,
well, if you pay attention enough, I just don't have the patience. But like, people always make mistakes with their burner accounts. Celebrities get caught. Like Driscoll got caught. There's been some. I'm a sports fan, so like I've seen some sports athletes get get outed by their they forget to put their burner account on and reply from their main account. And I'm sure some of these guys have done that. It's just we're not like
Yeah.
paying attention close enough to really monitor it that way. But yeah, I think you're right. Eventually we'll figure it out. Like the one guy
But
who was
I
going
mean,
after
even if
you.
not, like, even if, like, what are you doing? Right. Yeah. Like that
Yeah,
guy. Like,
yeah,
what are you doing? Really?
yeah. I went through his page to see if I could figure out if he was a pastor. I spent like 10 minutes going through his I was hoping that I could figure out easily if he made a mistake, but I couldn't. Um, but yeah, no, I was gonna say like, and then those of us that grew up in those environments where love was narrow, there's like, I think there's so much hurt and pain that comes with that of like realizing how much you haven't been loved or even taught to love, and there's such an unraveling as you go through the process of learning to love.
Yeah. That's a great
Like,
point. I mean,
you know,
I
I
was thinking about that earlier whenever you were talking about that and we were talking about kids. I was thinking, you know, I can say to my kids all day, I love you, I love you, I love you. And they can say back to me, but we don't feel like you love us, Dad. I said, but I put a roof over your head. Like I've taught you everything, like you're my flesh and blood, like, and give them a list of all of these reasons, you know, things that I protected them from, all these things. And yet, you know, they could still say back to me, but we don't feel like you really love us or even like us. And I feel like so often the church does that. It's like, you know, I'm saying I love you. You know, why don't you believe that I love you? I'm telling you the truth. This is in love. It's love. And the world, you know,
yeah,
is going, I don't feel that love. I don't think that's love. That word doesn't mean what you think it means. And yet the church is just like, you know, the blinders is on. If our kids said that
yeah,
to us, maybe if their kids said that to them, they wouldn't listen to them either. But I have to think that if like your own flesh and blood is saying to you, we don't feel love, like you would do some self assessment and say maybe there's a disconnect between what I think and how I'm acting and what's actually reality. But for some reason, the church just isn't able to do that when it comes to conversations in the public square.
yeah. That's a great analogy. I like that. Um, that's so good. Like it. That's another one of those. Like, I'm loving them. Are you? Like, do they? Are they gonna walk away saying, you know what, that guy really loves me?
Right? Like if you
You
have to
know.
say that, you've already lost. Like you've. But this is love. I'm loving them by saying, well, you've already lost if you have to like tell somebody, you know, that this. If
This
you have
is
to tell
love.
somebody this is love, like you just pack up shop and go home.
Well, and to put it back on them a little bit too, like, all right, if you truly believe that, you have to earn the right to speak that to somebody.
Right.
Like, they need to know that you do love them before broach some of those topics, right? But they don't want to do that. They don't, they don't want to take that time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I agree.
yeah. Well, you gotta
Yeah.
you got an
You wanna
appointment.
move on to the
So
after show? Let's do it.
let's get to
Here we go.
the good stuff.
All right, welcome to the after show. That was a pretty good conversation, honestly. I was not sure where we were going to go with that, but clearly you and I are both
Yeah,
passionate about it. Yeah.
yeah. We've done this enough times. We can kind of take it where we
Um,
need to go. But yeah, so you have
yeah, like almost a little over a week until the show. I am in the middle of Hell Week right now, where um, the food is extremely low in order to deplete, I guess, all my glycogen from my cells, is what the coach tells me. Whatever the hell that means. I think it just means like just brutally crush, you know, the body into breaking any
starve yourself.
resistance. Yeah,
Yeah.
any resistance it may have. I'm doing okay on it. Who knows what things will look like at the end? He just keeps saying, "Trust the process. It'll be okay." Um, it's crazy. So middle of next week, I think I come off of that, and then I'm supposed to recover for like 2-3 days before the show. So I guess I eat more, I work out less, I just give it a break, and then we'll see what happens. It's almost here,
All right.
but it's madness. I'll tell you. It's anybody could do it, but it's hard. It's a lot of work. I spent 3 hours in the gym this morning, 45 minutes in cardio. Then I came home and had breakfast. Then I went back to the gym to work out for 45 minutes, and then 25 more minutes of cardio. Um,
Wow, you're doing cardio.
I know, right? Who is this guy? I am, but because of the injury, which I think I'm just going to have to do surgery on the Achilles. Because of the injury, it's essentially a recumbent bike, which is it's actually a really nice way to work out. You've got this like lazy boy chair with a pedal.
One of those.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking like one of those bikes that they use in CrossFit or an air bike or one of those things. But no, it's a rather nice thing. So I take my laptop, my iPad with my little keyboard, and I sit there at the recumbent bike, working like an old man, and like the old man that I am.
My boss I had for a long time, he was old. He's 20 years older than me, but he said, if I can't read my newspaper while I do cardio, it's too much cardio for me. I was like, I never forgot that. And he loved that. He loved that bike, the bike where he could put his newspaper on there and just pedal while he read. Yeah.
I feel a little guilty for it, but then I'm like, as long as I'm getting my heart rate up in the target zone, which I think I am most of the time, it's like, whatever. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. Yeah. And that's what I've been learning through this process is part of the whole process is just dealing with the unknown and the surprises that come along the way everywhere. And so, I thought the competition would be with my ability to maintain nutrition or my ability to, just lift and look decent enough on stage to not be embarrassed, which I may still be embarrassed. I don't know, because you never know until that day how you're gonna look. It's all kind of chaos until then, and you just kind of hope and pray that you did everything in the way that works best for your body. I thought that those things would be the hard parts of the process, but it wasn't. The hard part of the process is the unknown and all of the other variables in life that you can't control that are either helpful or completely and utterly counterproductive in a way that you have to pivot. So it's about pivoting, and finding a way to continue to press forward even when it feels like whatever you're up against is insurmountable.
Yeah, that's good. That segues nicely to my.
Yeah, what's going on with you? Fill us in. You got a lot coming up. November's a big month for you, not just for me.
Yeah, I have a race, which so speaking of that stuff coming up, I've been helping my buddy move restaurant equipment this last couple weeks, and I dropped an oven on my foot. So
what?
Well, I should say I didn't drop it. My buddy who was with me, it slipped out of his hands and then found its way to my foot.
Is there some sort of like workman's comp for that? Really? Are you okay? Have you had it looked at?
So, yeah, it's just really bruised pretty bad. So it kind of clipped it. It didn't fall directly on it, or it probably would have broke. So I can't run right now, which is a problem when I have a race coming up in a week.
I have never thought that not being able to run was a problem. but I guess if your race is in a week?
I can walk.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's the same. I think it's the same weekend as yours. So
okay, first weekend in November.
Yeah. So I can walk okay, but as soon as I start to run, it throbs and I start limping.
You don't think you should have it looked at?
So
you could have a fracture.
I could. Yes, that's a very good point.
You're avoiding it, aren't you? You're avoiding it.
But so I fractured my other ankle last summer, and I know what that felt like, and this doesn't feel like that. But
so clearly, it's not a fracture. How stupid are you?
I'm a typical guy, I think.
Yeah, right. I mean, I hope you're right. Maybe you're right.
I don't know. I'll see how it goes.
I would think the pain would be unbearable, if it were, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, when I broke it
I got a
last
boot
summer,
I can send you.
yeah, I have a boot. I couldn't put any weight on it last summer,
Right.
so I can put weight on it. I just can't. Like the pounding of the running is what gets me.
Yeah. Ah,
So we'll see, but I'll at least go and attempt it. But the train, like you were saying, like life throws you curveballs, so figuring it out. So I'm trying to keep the cardio up by doing other things. So our CrossFit gym,
let me suggest the recumbent bike.
yeah, has the ski erg. Have you done that? Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
That works pretty good. So you can kind of keep your legs still and get the heart rate pumping. So I've been doing some of that, and the rower is not too bad. Um, Although I think I also tweaked my knee a little bit when I was trying to like save the oven
Yeah. Dang.
um, from falling. I don't know why I thought I could hold a 600-pound oven myself, but I thought that.
Well, it sounded like you could. It was your buddy that
Yeah.
couldn't. Sounds like you had no problem holding the oven.
uh, so yeah, so we'll see. Battling a little injury bug, and which is frustrating because I was feeling pretty good about it. I had built myself up to the mileage I needed
Oh, that's real
to
frustrating.
to accomplish. Um, so I don't know. We'll see how the next 10 days go. But
Well, take care of yourself. And a week from now, whenever we talk again, just before your race, I hope things are in better shape by then.
yeah, hopefully. All right, man.
All
Have
right, good to see you.
good PT.
Yeah, yeah. Headed to physical therapy because I don't spend enough time in the gym as it is. Old man problems.
Yeah.